Seches Kiddushin Daf Pei Aleph continues the Gemara's discussion of the halachos of yichud, the isser for a man to be secluded with a woman in a situation where they can come to an avera, and the Daf will also get into some agadata. So first halacha that's brought us of Yehuda and Rav, who says that which we said, that the halacha is that one woman is allowed to be misachid with two men, as long as they're ksherim, that is only within the city. However, if they're out on the road, then it's forbidden, because one of them may have to disappear for a while if he has to relieve himself, and that would leave one woman alone with one man, which is forbidden. The proof to that is when a husband and wife were sent to Sanhedrin to fulfill the Sota procedure, they sent two Talmid Chachamim along with them to accompany them. And why would they send two? You only have to have two men to prevent yichud, and you could have sent one Talmid Chacham plus the husband would be two men. So obviously you need to have three men if it's on the road. So the answer is not necessarily. The function of having two there was not to prevent yichud. The function of having two was that if they did do something wrong, then there would be two kosher witnesses to testify that it had happened, so that we would not give her the sota water, and we would know all the other halachos. Okay, next halacha, the Gemara brings an incident that happened. The Gemara says that Rav and Rav Yehuda were traveling along the way, and there was a woman who was passing near them. So Rav said to Rav Yehuda, let's lift up your feet quickly and run away from the proximity to Gehenim here. And he was referring to the fact that there was yichud there was two men and one woman. So he said, what's the yichud? The halacha is that as long as they're ksherim, as long as we're not talking about prutzim, they're kosher men. So yichud is permitted with one woman and two men. So what's the problem? So he said, ksherim doesn't necessarily mean ksherim like me and you. Ksherim can mean ksherim like Reb Chanina bar Papi and his associates, Rabbi Tzadok and Rav Kahana, where the Gemara on Daf Mem earlier in the Masechta lists some incidents as to how they were moiser nefesh to avoid situations of arais. Next, the Gemara says that Rav says you can give malchus for a violation of yichud, even though yichud in many circumstances is only in iser dirabanan. You can give makas mardus, which is malchus that's given for violating an iser dirabanan. However, you cannot aser a woman on her husband just based on yichud, without any further evidence of wrongdoing. So says Rav Ashi, this is only true that you can give malchus if she's not married. However, if she's an ancient ish, and you're going to give her malchus, people are going to assume that you know for a fact that she was mazana. You're not giving her misa because there is no misa anymore in our days. So therefore, the malchus will indicate that she is mazana, and then people will come to be moiti laws on her children and say that they were mamzer. So the Gemara says that Mar Zutra avoided the problem. He gave malchus, and he made an announcement. This malchus is for yichud, not for znus. So Rav Nachman from Parhati said to Rav Ashi, so why don't you do that as well? Give malchus and announce. So he said, some people will hear about the malchus and they won't hear about the announcement, and therefore it's not sufficient to do that in my opinion, and I'm not going to do that. Says, next halacha says Rav, you can give malchus even if there are persistent bad rumors about someone. And we see that from the children of Eli HaKoyen, where Eli said to them, Al beni ki leiteva shmua, Eli said no, and he said the word al, which implies a lav, that ki leiteva shmua, there's persistent bad rumors that are happening over here. Now, Mar Zutra would place a halter on the shoulders of a person who had these rumors, and he would say, Al beni, he would say this pasuk. Next halacha the Gemara says is that of Vala Be'ir, if a woman is alone with a man, but her husband is somewhere in the town, you don't have to worry about yichud because the fear, the awe of her husband is upon her since he's nearby. Another halacha is that if the door of the house is open to the street, then there's no yichud either, because there's prevention from being able to do something in private in a circumstance like that. Now the Gemara quotes an incident. The Gemara says that Rav Bivi went to the house of Rav Yosef. They had a meal together, and then they had eaten on the upper floor, and then Rav Yosef and his wife went down to the lower floor, and Rav Yosef wanted to leave the house, but he was leaving Rav Bivi alone in the upper floor, and his wife was in the house in the lower floor. So he told the servants, remove the ladder from the upper floor to the lower floor, that way there won't be yichud, because neither one will be able to cross from one to the other. So Mara asked, but he was planning on staying within the city, so it's Baila Be'ir. So Mara answers, Baila Be'ir doesn't work if they are neighbors or they have a excessive familiarity with each other. And that was the situation here, and therefore there was no heter of Baal Be'ir. He had to separate them. Now, the Gemara quotes a situation where you have men and women occupying separate rooms. The rooms are set up so you have an inner room and an outer room. And in order to get from the outer room to the street, there's no need to pass into the inner room. There's no reason why anyone in the outer room should ever have to go into the inner room if it's not his lodging. The people in the inner room, though, do have to pass through the outer room to get to the street. There's no other way to get there. So the Gemara has a machlokes as to where should you put the men and where should you put the women. Rav Kahana says you should put the men on the outside and the women on the inside. That way there's no reason for any man to go into the inner room. He has nothing there. He has no business being there. And that would be a situation where there would be a problem because a man can't be alone with any number of women. That would be an Isser Yichud. So that prevents that. Now, although the women will have to pass through the men's room to get to the street, that's fine because there's multiple men there and that wouldn't be a problem of Yichud. Now, that was Rav Kahana, but there is a Brisa that seems to say the opposite. And the reason for that would be that we're not concerned for Yichud in the outer room at all because it's open to the street and people go in and out. Problem is that someone might go into the inner room, and therefore you want to make sure that the men are in the inner room, so if a woman goes in there, it won't be a yichud because there's multiple men there. If, however, the women are in the inner room and a man decides to go in there, that would be serious yichud. So says Abaye, since Rav Kahana said it this way, and the Brisa said it that way, so I'm machmir for both situations, and I don't allow either of them. Now, the Gemara says that they would make mechitzas at events that would rattle if somebody would walk between them to warn of somebody crossing between. So Abaye would make rows of jugs so that it would make noise if someone wants to go to the other side. Rava would make reeds. And Rav Avin said that the worst time of the year is Yantif, when people are well-dressed, somewhat lightheaded, and together for shirim and things like that, so all kinds of situations can arise. All right, now the Gemara is going to go into a number of incidents pertaining to this subject. The first is the story of Rav Amram, called Rav Amram Chasida. He redeemed a group of women who were captured, and they were brought to Naharda, to his house, and he wanted to prevent any issues, so he placed them in the upper floor and had the very heavy ladder taken away so that he wouldn't be able to get to them. But then one of them walked by the hatchway between the upper floor and the lower floor, and a light shone, as it were, from her beauty into the house. And a extra powerful Yetzer Hara overcame Rav Amram, and he picked up a ladder that 10 people ordinarily wouldn't be able to lift, and he put it at the window at the hatch to be able to go up the ladder to get to her for an Aveira. And while he was halfway up, he overcame his Yetzer Hara, spread his feet apart on the ladder so that he wouldn't fall, and he shouted, "Fire in the house of Amram, fire in the house of Amram." When the Chachamim came and saw there wasn't any fire, and they said, "What's going on?" And he explained he was trying to avoid Yetzer Hara, so he said, "You're embarrassing us by showing that you had a Yetzer Hara like this. It looks bad for the Chachamim." So he said, it's better that you should be embarrassed in the house of Amram, and you shouldn't be embarrassed in Haba. And Rav Amram then made the Yetzer Hara swear to leave him, and it left him in a pillar of fire. So Rav Amram said to it, "You're fire, and I'm just flesh, but I've overcome you." Next, the Gemara relates two incidents that happened where the Satan was given the ability to give a particularly strong Yetzer Hara to someone. So the first is Rabbi Meir, and the second is Rabbi Akiva. They would make fun of the Bali Aveira. They felt like it wasn't such a big deal to overcome the Yetzer Hara, and therefore Hashem allowed the Satan to, as it were, almost defeat them in this way. And they each had a woman appear to them. There was the Satan in the form of a woman, and Rabbi Meir crossed a plank holding onto a rope to try to get it to her, and Rabbi Akiva climbed a tree to try to get to her because she was at the top of the tree. They each were let go from this Yetzer Hara halfway across, and the Satan said to them, "If not for the fact that in Shemaim they stopped me," and they said, "Be careful with Rabbi Meir and his Torah, be careful with Rabbi Akiva and his Torah, I would have made your life worth 2 mo," meaning not much. Next is the story of Plimo. The Gemara says that Plimo always used to curse the Satan, he would say there should be an arrow through the eye of the Satan. So Satan decided to get back at him, and then one day on Erev Yom Kippur, he appeared to him as a poor person asking for food. So they brought him bread outside. So he said, Erev Yom Kippur, I should eat in the street while everyone else is inside. So they said, okay. They invited him inside. And he said, Erev Yom Kippur, I should eat myself while everyone sits at the table. So okay, they invited him to sit at the table. And he was there. He became covered with sores and shchin, so that it was very vile and uncomfortable for everyone there. And he also behaved in a disgusting manner. So Plimo said to him, sit like a mensch and stop behaving like that. So he said to Plimo, give me a cup of wine to drink. They gave him a cup and he spit into it. So they yelled at him, and he made it seem as if he had died. So then he made Plimo hear people from the street yelling, Plimo killed somebody. Plimo killed somebody. So he thought that the police were after him. So he got up and he ran to the outhouse outside the city. So the Sultan followed him, and he fell before him again, pretending as if now he had really died. And then Plimo was in great tsar because of all this. So the Sultan revealed himself to him. So Sultan said, "What? This is all because you keep saying an arrow in the eye of the Sultan. Why do you keep cursing me like that?" So Plimo said, "That's to prevent myself from falling prey to you. I don't want to do an avera." So Sultan said, better off saying, Rachmana nigar be basatan. Let the merciful one, let Hashem yell at the Satan. But you don't need to say that. The Gemara now brings another incident. The Gemara says that Rav Chia bar Ashi used to say a special tefillah when he said at Tachlan. He would say, Harachman atzilenu mi Yetzer Hara, may Hashem save me from the Yetzer Hara, which referred to taivas of the flesh. So the Gemara says that his wife heard him saying it, and she said to herself, well, he hasn't been with me for a lot of years. I thought it's because he was unable to, or was uninterested. So then why does he have to say this tefillah? So she decided to test him. So while he was learning one day in the garden, she put on perfume and other clothing that she didn't usually wear, and she went back and forth in front of him, and he didn't recognize her. So he said, who are you? So she said, I'm Charusa. Charusa was a well-known zona. And she said, I've just come back to town today. And lo and behold, he asked her for tashmish. So she said, there's a pomegranate at the top of this tree. Bring it to me as my payment. So he did. He went up, brought it to her, and then he did the Maisa with her. According to some Mefarshim, it doesn't mean that he really went ahead and did, just that he planned on. And then when he came home, his wife was already home, and the oven was hot. So he went and he sat inside the oven. So he said, what's this? She asked him, why are you in the oven? So he said, this is what I did. I did the Savera, and he wanted to go into the oven as a kapara for it. So she said, don't worry about it, it was really me. But he didn't believe her until she gave him proof that it really was her. But he said to her, I am chayv anyway, because I intended to do something that is aser, even if I didn't actually do anything else, because it was actually you, I'm still chayv for the intent. And therefore he fasted every day for the rest of his life, and eventually he died from the fasting. Now, the Gemara discusses briefly the idea that if you intended to do an Avera, you are chai for it anyway. So Gemara has a brisa that says, Isha Afiram Hashem Yistachla, about a neder that a woman makes. It says that her husband can be made for it for her, and then Hashem will forgive her. So the Gemara was saying, why does Hashem have to forgive her? So the Gemara says, it's a woman who made a neder to be a nazir. Her husband heard and he was mayfair, but she did not hear that he was mayfair, and she went ahead and she drank wine anyway, or was matam l'mesim anyway, so she violated the neder without knowing that it had already been hufar. And therefore, she thought she did an avera, even though she did not. On that, it says Hashem Yistachla, showing that she still requires a slicha. So it says when Rabbi Kiva would see this, he would cry, and he would say, if somebody intends to eat the meat of a chazir, and instead he ends up eating the meat of a sheep, and still the Torah says that he requires a kapara, kavachomer, somebody who actually intended to eat meat, and he went ahead and he did eat meat, certainly he's chayav a kapara. You say the same thing about the pasuk discussing in Asham. It says v'lo yoda v'ashem v'nasa avaynai. And Rabbi Kiva would say, if someone who intended to eat kosher and instead he ate non-kosher, and the Torah says he needs a kapara. So certainly somebody who intended to eat kosher, certainly someone who intended to eat not kosher and really ate not kosher certainly requires a kapara. So Isi ben Yehuda says, it says, anyone who's reasonable should grieve and cry over that pasuk for this reason. The Gemara refers back to the Mishnah where we saw that it is mutter for a man to have yichud with his mother or his daughter. The Gemara quotes from Machlekes HaMirayim. Rav Yehuda says, name of Rav Asi, it's also mutter to have yichud with one's sister, but only temporarily. You cannot live long term, just him and the sister in the house. However, that arrangement is permitted with a mother or a daughter. And then the Gemara says that, however, when Rav Yehuda said in front of Shmuel, Shmuel said no. It is also to have yichud with any of the arayas, even in animal. Now the Gemara says Shmuel doesn't fit with our Mishnah. The Mishnah said clearly that yichud is permitted with a mother or a daughter. It even says he's allowed to sleep in contact with them. So it clearly rejects Shmuel. So Shmuel says it's a machlekes tanaim. This Mishnah holds that way. However, there's a brisa that says that there's an iser yichud on a sister or a mother-in-law and any of the arayas that are in the Torah. The only way one can be with them in a room is if there are witnesses there. So it's obviously a machlekes tanaim, and he brings another brisa. Rabbi Meir said, "Be careful with me that I shouldn't be alone with my daughter," and Rabbi Tarfon said, "Be careful with me, I shouldn't be alone with my daughter-in-law." It was a Talmud that made fun of him for being worried about that. And Rabbi Avodah said, Ben Gamliel, it didn't take long until after the Talmud said that he himself was nichshal with his own mother-in-law. Now the Gemara discusses Shmuel's halacha that you're not allowed to be alone with an animal. The Gemara says that when Abai would enter a field, or when he had a shepherd entering a field, he would make all the animals not be in the field. Rav Sheshes would have them be on the other side of the bridge. And Chanan min Aharda once went to Rav Kahana of Pum Nahar, and he saw he was learning there was an animal near him, so he said, "Do you not have like Shmuel?" So he said, "I didn't know about the animal." Now, a few exceptions to the Isser Yichud, some other halachos in Isser Yichud. Rava says that it is possible, it is mutter to be misachid with two women, although normally two women is usher, if they are in competition with each other, and therefore they cannot join into each other, then it's mutter. So examples of that would be two sisters-in-law, two co-wives, a woman and her mother-in-law, a woman and her stepdaughter, or a woman and a young girl who knows what's going on and she'll report it to others, but she's not old enough to be seduced. Okay, now the Gemara refers back to the Mishnah and finishes off the last halacha. The Mishnah had said that once they have grown up, you can't have a parent and child sleeping together with bodily contact. So Gemara says until what age? Rav Ada bar Azza. So we'll have a few opinions here. Rav Ada bar Azza, a name of Rav Asi, is that for the girl with her father it's until age 9 and 1 day. For a boy with his mother it's until age 12 and 1 day. Another version of that is for the girl it's 12 and for the boy it's 13. And they're both interpreting the pasuk in Yecheskel that says Shadayim nechaynu u'se'arech tzimeach, that we define maturity as growth of the upper part of the body on a girl and growth of hair. Now, the Gemara then brings Rafram bar Papa, named Rav Chizda, that said this is all only if the girl before her father, if she's not embarrassed to stand undressed before him. If, however, she has that embarrassment that she's already reached the age that she can have taiva, and therefore you shouldn't risk it. The Gemara says that Rav Acha bar Abba came to the home of Rav Chizda, who was his son-in-law, and he took Rav Chizda's daughter, who was his granddaughter, put her under a blanket and slept together with her b'kira basar. So on that, Rav Chizda said to his father, said to Rav Acha bar Abba, "Don't you know that she is mikudeshes?" So Rav Acha said, "If she's mikudeshes, then you violated Shmuel's halacha, then you violated Rav's halacha, because Rav Yehuda said the name of Rav, and some they say in the name of Rav Elazar, it is usher today to be mikadesh a girl while she is a katana until she can say who she wants to marry." And Chizah said you also violated a halacha. You violated Shmuel's halacha, because Shmuel said it's us to be mishtamish with a woman, so you can't use her the way that you did. On that he said, no, I hold like Shmuel's other halacha that it's mutter if it's l'shem shemayim, and here I did it l'shem shemayim to show her mother how much I love my granddaughter.